I'm going to tell you why you should be rewarding failure in your game, and why you probably already are, and that's a good thing. But before we do that, I want you to go to the blah blah below, that's the comments, and let me know, do you have variable success in your game? And does the system you use have variable success? How do you find a way to do that? Let me know. This is a small channel. I don't get many comments, so if you comment below, I'm going to see it, heart it, and probably respond, so let's get a conversation going. Welcome back, everybody. This is GDS. Let's get right into it. And we're going to start with the golden rule of gaming, that whatever you do, fun is the most important thing in your game. We play the game to have fun. Of course, this is not something I disagree with. But notice that this golden rule that we play to have fun and you should do things that are fun fails to actually describe anything about how you should be playing or running the game. It only describes a consequence of playing the game. It turns out that games are characterized by the fantasies they invoke, the thoughts, feelings, and, I guess for the lack of a better word, vibes that you get when you play the game. And people generally play games that evoke fantasies which they enjoy. For example, players who play Call of Cthulhu play that game to have fun. And the same is true for players who play D&D. They play that game to have fun. But those two games have very different notions of what is fun. And that is reflected in the fantasies that they evoke. Call of Cthulhu assumes that if you're playing it, the fantasy of cosmic horror and your character eventually going insane is something you find fun. And D&D assumes that the fantasy of waiting in combat for 5 hours is something you... Wait, that's not the script. It assumes that heroic fantasy, delving into dungeons and doing stuff like that, is fun. The point is, these different games are both fun. They both follow the golden rule of gaming, but the rule itself doesn't tell us anything about how we should run the game or what the game does. For that, we have the fantasy that the game evokes, that the game assumes is fun. So different games have different fantasies that they evoke that they assume is fun. And some, and I would say most of these fantasies involve, in one way or another, drama, tension, and resolution. And implicit in the idea of tension is uncertainty, risk, the potential to fail. And here exists a fundamental paradox of player psychology. On the one hand, players are playing the game to have fun by fulfilling the fantasies of the game, which involve risk. On the other hand, players and their characters are risk-averse. They want to maximize the probability of things going well and getting good things, and minimize the possibility of things going bad. This paradox may seem abstract, but it manifests in very concrete ways. For example, you set up an adventure hook, but the players don't take it because it's dangerous, and there are better ways to make money or resources for far less risk. Or you set up an investigation encounter and the players just summon a familiar and use it to walk around and look at things without risking their own characters. Now, I know that some people are going to say that this is not a paradox and not a problem. Risk aversion makes sense in the world. In other words, they would tell me that that's what my character would do. Which is a fair justification in many instances, but not when you're compromising other players' fun. Like we said, players are playing this game to have fun by fulfilling the fantasies of this game, which involves risk. So yes, if you are always averse to risk, then you are compromising fun. Some people also try to solve this paradox by saying, well, people ought to do what is fun, like fulfilling the fantasy of risk, as its own end. Fun as its own end. Just do something because it's fun. This seems to make sense, but the problem with this is that it tells people what they should be doing, and that rarely works to change players' behaviors, or anyone's behavior. The only way you can do that is to interface with what they actually do and what they're actually motivated by. In our case, luckily enough, we have a really easy answer. Players are easy to motivate. If you want players to do something, reward it. So if part of the fantasy of the game you are running is taking risk and potentially failing, you need to reward those things. It's easy to see how risk is naturally rewarded in the game, but it also means we need to do something slightly less obvious, which is reward failing. This is the first reason to reward failing. Players want to have fun by fulfilling the fantasy of the game, which involves trying and sometimes failing, taking risk. So taking risk is a behavior we want to encourage from players. It's something we expect, therefore we should reward it. The second reason to reward failing is that sometimes failing means total setback, which players generally hate. You put some resources like time or in-game money into something and you get absolutely nothing. You end up where you started. In most stories that we enjoy, heroes gain something from failure, whether it is partial progress, experience, wisdom, or something else. And aligned with that, in most fantasies of games I see, total failure is not a part of the fantasy. And while it's not completely prohibited, it generally, for players, just sucks. Now, I understand that rewarding failure may seem counterintuitive, or like it would break verisimilitude. I mean, that's not what would really happen. That said, that's not what would really happen is the GM's version of that's what my character would do. The players are trying to portray a believable character, and yes, as GMs, we are trying to portray a believable world. But we also use currencies and, well, a game system to make this world fun for our players to inhabit. While total setback, putting resources into something and losing the resources and ending up where you started, is something that can happen in real life and could believably happen in your world, there is a reason we don't generally see it in our stories or our fantasies. It's extremely frustrating. Doing stuff like that will make your players think, why did I even bother? And that's not something you want your players to be thinking. Okay, so fine. Let's say you're on board with rewarding failure. Wonderful, I like it when you agree with me, you should do that more. What does that actually mean? First, players, when they fail to achieve whatever primary objective they were trying to accomplish. And then they gain some kind of situational bonus or a meta currency. And that's it. That's how you reward failure. Let's go through a few examples. Here is a situational bonus example. Say you have a character that is attempting to jump over a pit and they roll and they fail. Now you could say as a DM, you fall to your death, roll a new character. This is not particularly dramatic or fun for the player. You could also say, okay, you fail to jump over the pit, but as you are falling down, you grasp onto vines, and as you're trying to ascend them, you are slowly pulling them out of wherever they're attached, and you're descending further and further. Maybe somebody could help you. Maybe you could do better with your next roll. If you've been around the GM spaces, you will notice that this is the no, but scenario, in that we don't just say, no, you don't succeed, we say, no, you don't succeed, but this other thing does happen. Here are some meta currency examples. Say that you have some kind of smithing system in your game, and a player fails to smith something, the resources are destroyed, and they also lose the time that the character spent making that item. Instead of that's being it, maybe we can give them some kind of special experience point that you can only get when you fail a smithing check, and when you have that, your next smithing check will be a guaranteed success. Or your next success will have an additional bonus because you have some kind of extra experience. Another thing you can do is, for example, make a list of the things you and your players want their characters to do in the game. Let me read off my notes here. Let's say part of the fantasy of our game is 1. Learning lost information, discovering lost landmarks, unearthing ancient artifacts, and being morally gray characters. Okay, those are 4 things. So one thing you can do here is at the end of the session, give everyone in the party XP for every item that at least one character accomplished. Players already want to be doing all of those things because they signed up to play in your game, and that kind of fantasy sounds awesome to them. All they need is extra motivation to get over the paradox of risk aversion. If you want your players to do something, anything, reward it. And while all of this is great, I will say there are some situations where you may not want to reward failure. After all, the goal isn't to remove consequences from the game altogether, it's to accomplish the fantasy that the game is trying to fulfill. For a dramatic game where you want drama to happen, it means creating dramatic situations where it makes sense. Maybe players fail so often that you run out of fail-forward ideas. Or maybe they come up with a plan so stupid or so insane that you think rewarding failure in that plan would be breaking verisimilitude. Failure, of course, should always be on the table. Which is why I'm going to give you a very unhelpful advice here, which is use this kind of thing, rewarding failure or failing forward, as a spice, as a vibe spice. When your players feel frustrated with continuous bad rolls or an unlucky die roll, just sprinkle some failing forward. That's everything I have for today. In this video, we talked about why the golden rule of gaming doesn't actually tell you that much about what a game should be doing, and instead it's all about what fantasy is the game trying to evoke. We talked about the paradox of risk aversion. Players want to fulfill these fantasies they think are fun, but they also don't want to risk their characters. And we talked about how you could potentially solve it by adding failing forward mechanisms or rewarding failure. I hope you found the video interesting, and if you did, make sure to slam the like button with all your might. You can use whatever body part you want. I actually should absolutely not say that. But whatever you do, please smash the like button an odd number of times. Let's go for 15. And please subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. It will let me know that you want to do that. I can't tell you how much this stuff helps, because I honestly don't know. I don't know how the algorithm works, and I don't think anyone does. We have a Discord that's going to be in the nonsense below. Come join the conversation. We talk about everything that we talk about in these videos. That's pretty much it. This is now your time to change a video, watch a different video. If you like discussion of the fantasies of game and you want to hear more, I'm going to put a video on the screen right now, which is going to be talking about what are games? What is the anatomy of a game? We have fantasies, but surely this can't be everything, because how do you get from just a fantasy of the game to the actual mechanics of the game? Curious. That's pretty much it. I'll see you later.